Absolutely nothing could have prepared the Rangers faithful for the nightmare that unfolded at Ibrox. A Champions League night that was supposed to inspire belief and push Russell Martin's new-look side one step closer to the group stage, instead turned into a catastrophic collapse in front of their own fans. And while some may be looking for explanations, former striker Chris Boyd didn't bother dressing it up. He went straight for the jugular, calling it exactly what it was: embarrassing, disorganized, and a massive reality check for a team that, right now, looks miles away from competing at this level. It all began with a crowd that was up for it. The noise before kickoff, the optimism despite recent inconsistencies, the belief that maybe, just maybe, this Rangers squad could show enough bite to put Club Brugge on the back foot. But within 7 minutes, all of that hope was ripped apart. Defensive chaos reigned, communication vanished, and Rangers were suddenly 2 goals down, and the match had barely settled. 20 minutes in, it was 3-0. That's not just a slow start. That's a meltdown. The defensive unit completely crumbled under pressure. The first goal was a textbook example of confusion at the back. Deja and Jack Butland got their wires crossed in spectacular fashion, failing to clear a ball that begged to be dealt with. Instead, Brugge pounced and punished. No leadership, no urgency, and, crucially, no awareness. Moments later, Rangers switched to zonal marking during a set piece, but nobody bothered to track runners, and Brugge once again capitalized with a free header from inside the penalty area. At this level, it's suicidal to defend like that. And by the time the third goal hit the back of the net, a thunderbolt from the edge of the area, the tie already felt dead and buried. Chris Boyd wasn't just annoyed. He was furious. Speaking after the game, he pointed to the same mistakes happening over and over. Individual errors, yes, but more than that, a complete lack of collective discipline. And he's not wrong. This isn't just about 3 goals in 20 minutes. It's about a pattern. A team that, even when things go well in patches, continues to concede soft goals in the worst possible moments. It doesn't matter how much you dominate possession or how positive you look in training. If you're gifting opponents chances like this, you're going nowhere fast in Europe. And here's where it gets even more worrying for the Rangers support. The second half, while technically an improvement, only served to paper over the cracks. Danilo's goal offered a glimmer of hope, and yes, the team looked more composed after the break. But let's be honest, 1 shot on target all night? That's not good enough. Not at home. Not in a Champions League qualifier. Not for Rangers Football Club. It was the kind of toothless attacking performance that leaves fans not just disappointed, but deeply concerned about where this project is actually headed. Russell Martin now finds himself in the eye of the storm. He's tried to introduce a more expansive style, asking his team to play from the back, to be brave in possession, to control games. And while that might work in theory, and even show glimpses of promise domestically, nights like this expose the brutal gap between ideology and reality. Because right now, Rangers don't have the structure or the personnel to play that way at the top level. They're not compact, they're not disciplined, and worst of all, they're not hard to beat. Club Brugge didn't just win this game. They tore Rangers open with minimal resistance. That's the kind of loss that sticks. Not just on the score sheet, but in the psyche of the squad. The booze at halftime said it all. The Ibrox crowd, known for its passion but also its standards, were stunned. And by full time, they weren't just frustrated, they were furious. Danilo, to his credit, tried to front up. He spoke after the match and urged the fans to stick with them, to stay united in a difficult moment. And fair enough, he's not the one who should be shouldering all the blame. In fact, he was one of the few bright spots on an otherwise dark night. But when a club like Rangers is on the brink of dropping into the Europa League so early, sympathy runs thin. The truth is, these are growing pains. But there's a big difference between growing pains and tactical naivety. Throwing a 19-year-old debutant into a Champions League qualifier while leaving seasoned leaders like James Tavernier on the bench, that's a decision that will be questioned. Chris Boyd was quick to highlight that. It's not about the young lad not giving his all. He actually did okay in patches, but this is a results business. And if your most experienced players are sitting while your defense is imploding, people will want answers. Then there's the bigger picture. This wasn't just a bad night. It's part of a trend. Rangers look far too open, far too fragile, and far too easy to play through. And that's not just a system issue. That's about mentality, about leadership, about hunger. Boyd didn't hold back on that either. He called out the so-called leaders in the team who were supposed to set the tone, rally the group, dig deep when things get tough. None of that was on display. In fact, it was the opposite. A team folding under pressure, looking lost, hoping for individual moments of brilliance to bail them out. And let's not forget what's at stake here. We're talking about Champions League qualification, the financial lifeline, the prestige, the spotlight. And in one night, Rangers have put all of that at risk. The second leg in Belgium now looks like a mountain that may be too high to climb. A miracle is what's needed. But based on what we saw on the first leg, even hoping for that might be a stretch. Of course, there's still time to respond. The league campaign rolls on, with a huge match coming up against Street Mirren, followed by the Old Firm showdown. Russell Martin's first taste of that battlefield. These next few fixtures will define not just the early part of his reign, but potentially the direction of the entire season. The pressure is immense. And while Martin can talk about positives in the second half, or about the team learning and improving, the reality is that fans want results. And right now, the results and performances simply aren't there. The reaction inside the dressing room will be crucial. Will the players own up to the mess? Will the coaching staff acknowledge the tactical flaws? Or will it be another round of vague explanations and talk of patience? Because patience is a luxury Rangers don't always have. The fans demand success, and when nights like this happen, that demand only intensifies, especially when the same defensive errors keep popping up like clockwork. If Russell Martin wants to build something long-term, he needs to start by fixing the basics. Organization, compactness, fight. Without that, it doesn't matter how pretty the build-up play looks. And let's be real, this wasn't Real Madrid or Bayern Munich on the other side of the pitch. Club Brugge are a good team, yes, but this is not a European giant. Rangers should at least be able to hold their own, especially at home. Instead, they were humbled, outworked, and outplayed in just about every department in that first half. That's not just poor execution. That's a complete failure to rise to the occasion. Now, while all eyes are on the European fallout, there's also transfer noise in the background. Rangers have reportedly rejected a bizarre loan offer from Lille for striker Hamza Igerman. The French side want the forward on a temporary deal with no fee involved, and the club's response was as expected, a flat-out no. Rangers value Igerman highly, and if there's any chance of him leaving, it won't be for free, and it certainly won't be on Lille's terms. The player himself is said to be open to the move, but given the timing and the fact that he's already proven his worth with 16 goals last season, this is one the club won't want to mess up. Igerman's return to the squad in the recent Premier Sports Cup win over Alo was a reminder of what he brings: power, finishing, presence. And right now, Rangers need all of that, especially with confidence dipping after Tuesday night's disaster. Whether he stays or goes may depend on whether Lille come back with a serious offer. But with less than 2 weeks left in the window, the clock is ticking. So here we are. Rangers licking their wounds after a Champions League collapse, with questions swirling around the manager, the players, and the club's direction. It's not panic stations yet, but the pressure is growing. And with huge domestic and European fixtures looming, the next few matches will reveal exactly what this squad and its manager are made of. The focus now turns to recovery, but not the kind that can be solved with a few good training sessions or some comforting post-match interviews. This is about mentality. This is about identity. And if Rangers are serious about salvaging their season, let alone progressing in Europe, they need to find answers fast because the schedule won't offer them time to breathe. With the second leg against Club Brugge approaching rapidly and the Old Firm clash looming just around the corner, Russell Martin and his players are facing a gauntlet that could either define them or expose them beyond repair. The troubling part isn't just the scoreline from Tuesday night. It's the way the goals were conceded, the body language when things started to unravel, and the lack of fight during the key moments. That's not just tactical, it's emotional. It speaks to a deeper fragility within this group. You can drill systems all you want, but if your players aren't responding to pressure with urgency and steel, then the system becomes irrelevant. That's where Martin finds himself now. He's got ideas, sure. He's got principles about how the game should be played. But none of that means anything if his squad can't execute those ideas under stress. Chris Boyd's comments might sting, but there's truth in the harshness. He called out the so-called leaders who disappeared when the heat turned up. He pointed to the worrying trend of repeated errors. And he didn't sugarcoat the performance. That's the kind of accountability fans need to hear, even if it hurts. Because Rangers aren't just losing games, they're losing the traits that once made them feared across Europe: discipline, resilience, and collective belief. And while supporters are right to voice their frustration, they're also watching a project that feels like it's still in its testing phase, too experimental, too flimsy, and far too slow to correct its flaws. The gamble to give youth a chance and to shift the tactical identity of the squad was bold. But bold doesn't mean brilliant. Sometimes bold backfires. And when you're getting torn apart at home in the opening quarter of a European knockout tie, it's hard to defend those choices with any conviction. Then there's the issue of squad depth and recruitment. The summer window was supposed to be about reshaping the squad to better reflect Martin's style: more ball-playing defenders, more technical midfielders, quicker transitions. But as we saw against Brugge, the personnel still doesn't seem to fit the philosophy. There are gaping holes, especially in defense, and when the game demands aggression or composure under fire, too many players go missing. That's not just on the manager. That's on the scouting department, the boardroom, and everyone involved in shaping the squad over the past year. We've heard Martin talk about long-term planning and about building something sustainable. That's admirable in theory. But in Glasgow, particularly on the blue side, long-term doesn't mean much if short-term expectations aren't being met. And right now, those expectations are being crushed under the weight of inconsistency and underperformance. The fans aren't asking for miracles. They're asking for a team that fights, that defends with pride, and that wears the badge with purpose. When all of that is absent, it's no wonder the atmosphere turns sour. And let's not ignore the emotional toll this kind of defeat can take. The players walked off to a wall of boos, not because the fans enjoy it, but because they care. They've seen what this club can be, what it has been, and they know the standards that come with wearing that jersey. There's no hiding at Ibrox. No free passes. You either rise to the level or get swept aside by the weight of expectation. The question now is whether Martin and this squad can respond with the kind of steel that defines real contenders. It's not just about tactics or possession stats or XG figures. It's about character. Do these players have it? Does the manager? Because that's what's going to be tested over the next few weeks. A result in Belgium would be historic, yes, but also improbable based on the first leg display. So the more realistic goal now is to regroup, refocus, and ensure that the domestic season doesn't spiral in the same direction. That's where the Street Mirren match becomes absolutely pivotal. It's not just another league fixture. It's a test of the team's psychological recovery. Do they come out sharp? Do they dominate? Do they show a bit of bite that's been missing? Because if not, the pressure will ramp up again, and with Celtic waiting in the wings, things could turn ugly very quickly. One of the major concerns raised post-match is the lack of intensity in midfield. Rangers are crying out for someone to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, to dictate the tempo, to win second balls and start transitions. Too often, possession is passive. Too often, opponents are given space to run. And without a dominant midfield, everything else begins to unravel. That's not something a tweak in formation can solve. That's about personnel, and it's about attitude. Players like Jack Butland have been dependable for the most part, but even he was left exposed on Tuesday night. And when your goalkeeper is constantly being asked to bail you out because the structure in front of him has collapsed, it's only a matter of time before the dam breaks. There's only so much a keeper can do when runners aren't tracked, passes aren't closed down, and set pieces aren't defended with basic organization. As for the attack, the story is just as grim. One shot on target in 90 minutes. At home, in a match of that magnitude. That's not just a bad night. It's a total failure of attacking intent. Danilo managed to pull one back, yes, but where was the urgency after that? Where was the push? Where was the belief? There's no point dominating in training if, come match day, you look like strangers in the final third. Supporters have every right to question why attacking signings haven't made the desired impact. Whether it's injuries, adaptation periods, or a tactical misuse, the end result is the same. Too few goals, too little creativity, and not enough threat to put fear into opponents. And when you compare that to the ruthlessness Brugge showed, especially in that first half, the contrast is damning. Russell Martin might argue that this is all part of the process, that nights like this are stepping stones. But that argument only works if there's visible progress. Right now, progress feels like a buzzword more than a reality. Fans want performances that show grit, not just theory. They want points, not promises. And that's why the clock is ticking. The Old Firm game is always a monumental occasion, but this one feels even bigger. Not because of the rivalry alone, but because it could either reignite belief or spark a full-blown crisis. A heavy defeat to Celtic, especially on the back of this European humiliation, would throw everything into chaos. Martin's tenure, the board's recruitment strategy, and the entire narrative around the season. It's up to the players now. They've heard the boos. They've read the headlines. They've seen the frustration. The only way to change the story is by delivering on the pitch. And that starts with putting in a professional, commanding performance against Street Mirren. No excuses. No more soft starts. Just focus, drive, and execution. Because if they don't respond, the questions won't just be about this season. They'll be about the direction of the club as a whole. About whether this project under Russell Martin is built on solid foundations or whether it's already showing cracks too big to ignore. The coming weeks won't just test tactics. They'll test the soul of this team. And in football, especially in Glasgow, that's the only test that really matters. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. In what is already being whispered through the pubs of Glasgow as the most audacious transfer coup in decades, the rumor mill has set its sights on Harry Kane being prepared for an extraordinary move to Rangers. The mere mention of his name in Ibrox corridors has left supporters both bewildered and electrified, for never before has a player of such stature been linked with the blue side of Glasgow in such concrete terms. Sources close to those orchestrating this supposed maneuver insist that discussions have been advanced quietly, almost in secrecy, with the clear ambition of lifting Rangers immediately back into the loftiest conversations of European football. It is said the deal has been framed not just as a sporting project, but as a cultural leap, positioning the club as a beacon of ambition well beyond Scotland's borders. Kane, renowned for his loyalty and goal-scoring feats in England, would be seen as the jewel required to tip the balance in the eternal Old Firm battle, a weapon of immeasurable caliber that would instantly raise Rangers' domestic firepower and international reputation. Whether such rumors hold weight or dissolve in a legend, the city is alive with chatter that refuses to be silenced. The strategic implications of such a transaction are being mulled over in every supporters' gathering, with many speculating that this is more than just footballing business. It is a declaration of war in the context of Scottish rivalry. Celtic, accustomed to their own grand gestures, would find themselves staring down a challenge that redefines the very stakes of the Premiership. Imagine, they say, Kane striding out onto the pitch at Parkhead, draped in blue, his very presence igniting a ferocity not seen in modern Scottish football for decades. The board at Rangers, long criticized for not keeping pace financially with continental giants, would silence critics at once, transforming perceptions overnight. Questions remain, of course. Can the club realistically sustain the wages of such an icon, and would Kane himself embrace the seismic cultural adjustment required? Yet the counterargument heard most often in Glasgow's late-night conversations is that this very boldness, this refusal to accept limits, is what could reignite Rangers' grandest traditions. The whispers grow louder each day, and speculation now borders on anticipation, a collective dream daring to become tangible. Observers of the British game are already dissecting the feasibility of such a dramatic twist, with analysts pointing to precedents of high-profile names revitalizing clubs outside the usual Premier League bubble. KANE, nearing the age where legacy overshadows novelty, may find Scotland an unlikely but compelling stage to inscribe his name across football history in an entirely new way. The marketing value alone is being cited as potentially groundbreaking. Television rights, shirt sales, international attention all flowing towards Ibrox as never before. The sheer magnetism of KANE would guarantee Rangers not only a surge of local pride, but also a broadening of influence, creating a narrative that extends to Asia, North America, and beyond. Critics counter that football has seen wild tales before, whispers that ultimately collapse under the weight of reality. But this time the silence from official circles is fueling intrigue rather than calming it. When no denial arrives, the rumor grows teeth, becoming something more palpable, almost believable. And in Scotland, where football breathes as daily ritual, such belief is powerful enough to bend expectation and reshape ambition overnight, leaving supporters and skeptics alike unable to ignore the possibility that history might be rewritten. On the training grounds, younger players reportedly buzz with the possibility, imagining themselves sharing the pitch and the dressing room with a figure they had long watched only on television screens. Coaches, too, are said to be sketching hypothetical systems, wondering how KANE's hold-up play and finishing could integrate into the tactical patterns already in place. Speculative formations are being debated endlessly. Would Rangers pivot to a more direct approach, or could KANE become the fulcrum around whom their attacking creativity blossoms? Such conversations betray a sense of inevitability, as though the footballing imagination has already made the leap, even if contracts have not. Supporters share videos of KANE's greatest goals with renewed intensity, pairing them with the chants of Ibrox in hopeful montages that blur reality with desire. The psychological impact alone, some argue, would tilt the entire season before a ball is even kicked, intimidating rivals and empowering Rangers faithful. In a league often dismissed for lacking glamour, such a presence could alter narratives, ensuring each Rangers match is broadcast and dissected with unprecedented global attention. This rumor, wild as it may be, has thus already begun shaping the season's storylines. And so the city waits, perched between disbelief and intoxicated anticipation, as the story unfolds in hushed voices and confident nods. If KANE were indeed to don the blue of Rangers, it would mark not just a signing, but a transformation, an inflection point in the club's modern era. The boardroom whispers suggest a calculated gamble designed to yield instant silverware, to reclaim European stature, and to embed Rangers into the footballing consciousness far beyond the Clyde. For the supporters, though, the calculus is simpler. The thought of Harry Kane leading the line at Ibrox is intoxicating enough to drown out doubt. Journalists pace nervously, debating whether to treat the rumor as substance or fantasy. Yet all acknowledge the power it holds in stirring the imagination of City. Perhaps it is the greatest compliment to the narrative that even those who laugh at the improbability find themselves lingering, envisioning, asking what if. In that space between skepticism and yearning, the legend of this transfer rumor thrives. And until clarity arrives, Glasgow's footballing heart will beat faster, louder, caught in the grip of a story too grand to ignore. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comment section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.